Welcome to the Irish Farmers Journal Weekly Podcast.
Hello and welcome to this week's podcast. I'm Hannah Quinn Mulligan. Coming up on the show this week, An Taoiseach joins the debate on low-cost farm loans, suggesting farmers want to wait until after Brexit to receive loans.
We have to plan for the future on a rational basis, and we're always saying to business and farmers that they need to prepare for Brexit, but they say back to us very reasonably that we don't yet know exactly what Brexit means.
And as you poured milk on your cornflakes this morning, did you spare a thought for how much the farmer got to produce it? We hear from one liquid milk supplier who argues retailers should pay more.
In many ways it's anger, because you look at everybody, they're trying to improve their lot. You've Ryanair pilots trying to get more, teachers trying to get more, and here we're trying to educate these people to say they're trying to cut it, we're trying to stop it from free falling.
But first, good news for farm families this week as the government has finally granted changes to the Fair Deal nursing home scheme for farms and small businesses. Farmers have been campaigning for a number of years to see changes happen to the scheme. And our correspondent Thomas Hubert spoke to Hilda O'Brien about changes and how they would save her family up to €125 a week.
And I'm here with a family who've had a farm in the family for generations and are now faced with charges related to the father of the family getting into a nursing home under the Fair Deal. Hilda O'Brien is with me. Hilda, this is your father we're talking about. How is the Fair Deal scheme working for you at the moment?
Well, it's working that the farm is on a 5-year cap and the house is on a 3-year cap. Daddy was 4 years in the nursing home in January this year, so the cap of the house is after being reduced, but there's still the financial cost from the asset of the farm.
And how much is this costing you every week?
It's costing us now €297.51 a week.
And that's based on the pension, the farm, everything that your father and your family is assessed as having as resources?
Yes, it is, yeah.
Now, the government is proposing that the farm charge could end after 3 years, just like the house charge. How would that make a difference for you?
Well, it would be a great difference because it would mean that the pension that Daddy's getting would cover his costs and he'd still have money left over that I could save for him.
Okay, and at the moment, what kind of things do you have to bring the family around to support that you could maybe let the pension cover?
Well, it could cover, you know what I mean, I'm paying for his pharmacy, his chiropodist and haircut every month, so that would cover that every month for me, and I'd be able to save a little bit extra for him, and, you know, then for ourselves, then we'd have extra money for things at home to do, with the house and things like that.
And then we're talking about a small enough farm. Your brother is farming it. You were telling me it's not really making enough money to cover the charges at the moment.
Well, no, it's because my brother works full time as well, so he just has dry stock. So it's basically, you know what I mean, ticking over for him, like, you know, which I find is frustrating because, like, just because it wasn't out of the name, like, you know what I mean. Like we gain nothing from it as a family. Like he's ticking over, as I say, with it, you know.
Yeah, and there's no way the farm would cover the charges you're being liable to pay at the moment.
No, it wouldn't. No.
Okay, Hilda, thank you very much, and I hope for you and other families in the same situation those changes are approved. Thanks.
That was Thomas Hubert there speaking to Hilda O'Brien. Now, how much do you pay for a litre of milk? Retailers such as Aldi and Iceland have come under fire recently for selling milk at the discounted rate of €1.30 for 2 litres. Our Deputy News Editor Odile Evans spoke to Dublin-based liquid milk farmer Padraig O'Sconnell about the need for retailer accountability.
My first gallon of milk was produced or sold on the 1st of March 1982. So being 8 miles from the GPO, sure, my market was Dublin City. You know, so I've been liquid milk all of my lifetime and striving to produce more of it.
And tell us, calving 45 in the autumn would be typical for you then?
Perhaps I would have done more. I've narrowed it down to 2 months, 8 weeks. Yeah. I start mid-September and I finish mid-November if I can. You know. Yeah. And I won't have them after that. I don't want calves born on Christmas anymore. I used to calve all year. Yeah. Pardon?
The work in it.
The work is in it, yeah. And compact calving, I can deal with them as a batch.
Yeah.
You know.
And tell us, your spring calving cows then, is that to spread the cost over the years or to make sure there's a milk check coming in every month? What's the...
I suppose it is, yeah. Well, we always need fresh cows. We're in the business of producing fresh milk, and in the past, Baileys would always have loved the fresh milk and the freshly calved cow. So, yes, it did balance the year. We're produced 365 days a year and helped to fill the lean months. It was also to follow grass. 80% of our ration is grass, or more of even, you know. So we're driving for grass. We used to calve all year; it didn't matter. But now we have kind of taken those inefficiencies out of it and have learnt new skills, and we're now applying them.
And you're surrounded by the likes of Keelings and a lot of tillage around here, so I take it as relatively dry land. Your winter will be, 2 months long?
No, not that good. No. Originally, we would have had a 5.5 month winter. Right. We have it back down now to about 4.5, except for this year.
I mean, the premium between winter milk and spring milk, it's narrowed over the years.
It has, and the processors are trying to narrow that down. And in many ways, it's complex what way it's gone. They've used other farmers to try and narrow that down, but you cannot. You must have freshly calved cows to produce fresh milk, and milk is not just white produce; it has to be fresh. And there are other processors who did try to produce winter milk from stale cows or late calving cows, and they've lost their winter milk.
The quality's not there.
Yeah, the quality is not there. The shelf life is not there, and the punter knows that. But yes, they are trying to narrow down. They're always trying to cut our costs. But that, in a way, 2018 has proven that that's a wrong. That's a wrong approach. There has to be a living in it for everybody, and if there isn't, it's not going to be there. Why liquid milk? Why the youth are running from liquid milk? It's a complex yard. You have to have 2 teams of cows calving summer and autumn. You also have to have replacements to match that.
So when you see the retailers then coming in pricing, discounting their milk price to attract consumers, what's your initial reaction?
In many ways, it's anger. Because you look at everybody, they're trying to improve their lot. You've Ryanair pilots trying to get more, teachers trying to get more, Gardaí all trying to get more. And here we're trying to educate these people to say they're trying to cut it, we're trying to stop it from free falling. So what other way could you take it, only anger? And why are they doing it? They're only doing it because they can get away with it. There is nobody to police them. And every other sector of society is regulated. We've speed limits, we've double yellow lines, and we've nothing to regulate them. But there's no point in having double yellow lines nor speed limits unless it's been enforced.
O'Deal Evans speaking to Padraig O'Sconnell there. Now, low-cost loans for farmers were promised in the budget last October, with €25 million set aside as seed money to leverage the loans. Loans were expected this year, with even the Junior Minister for Agriculture stating this week that he had been told they would be delivered by the 1st of July, a date that has come and gone. An Taoiseach was in Drina Co-op last Friday opening a new feed mill and suggested that farmers wanted to wait until after Brexit to have access to the loans. But first, he spoke about the importance of the Irish border post-Brexit.
Suffice to say that as far as the Irish government is concerned, we don't want any barriers to trade or a border north-south or east-west. Obviously the best way that can be avoided is by the UK as a whole, including Northern Ireland, staying in the single market and the customs union. They've decided that they don't want to do that, so we need to come up with an alternative. The backstop which the European Union, including Ireland, put forward back in March is workable and gives us the guarantee that we need, that there will be no hard border between Northern Ireland and Ireland under any circumstances. If the UK has alternative proposals as to how we can achieve that, we're very happy to consider them. But the proposal that they produced so far a few months ago doesn't quite do that because it's time limited and it doesn't cover the whole issue of regulatory alignment. But we're absolutely open to discussions on a backstop that achieves what we wanted to achieve, but it must be better or the same as the one that we've proposed.
Obviously, Durham's going to be impacted here, and a lot of milk would go to making cheese. That was going to go to the UK. What's going to happen? What is the government going to put in place? Are you going to put in low-cost loans for farmers? Can we expect them this year to help with Brexit?
Yeah, well, we have put in low-cost loans already, and they're in place.
How soon? I mean, the IFA want them this year, in the next couple of months. Can we see that?
We have to plan for the future on a rational basis, and we're always saying to business and farmers that they need to prepare for Brexit, but they say back to us very reasonably that we don't yet know exactly what Brexit means and what the shape of Brexit will be.
The last budget to prepare for this?
Well, no, like I say, what we have done already, we've already put in place 450 million euros worth of low-cost loans for business and agri-food industry, and also as well as that, there's the investment board. There's people waiting outside.
An Taoiseach Leo Varadkar there. Now, Minister Doyle has stated that he now expects loans to be announced in September, but he can't make any guarantees. Now, as many of you might be aware, Farm Safety Week took place last week, with 3 people sadly losing their lives on farm accidents during the week. Over the past decade, 210 people have lost their lives on farm accidents, and the Health and Safety Authority, the HSA, are urging farmers to improve on farm practices. Last year, the HSA carried out over 1,700 health and safety inspections on farms, and news correspondent Una Sinnott spoke to HSA Inspector Martina Gormley about the most common safety hazards on farms.
All farms are different. You can observe when you walk into a farm the machinery. I mean, what we do are spot checks. We don't look at everything. We're there to raise awareness, or if we see something that maybe needs to be addressed, then we'll bring it to the attention of the farmer. So it depends on the farm you go to. It could be the tractor. It could be an unguarded PTO guard. It could be an agitation point. Maybe, it needs you'll see different types depending on where you go, and ideally you'd like to see the agitation point outside the shed with a grid, and then the little metal covers that go over the grid. Where things have been progressed, like the agitation points, it makes the work easier for the farmer. So any progress or investment generally will actually make life easier for the farmer where that happens. Even things like working at heights, typically in the autumn time, some people will go up and clean the gutters on their buildings. And so in autumn time, you can sometimes see a spike in accidents and fatalities at a height where somebody has just gone up the ladder to clean a gutter, but the weather is inclement and they've slipped and maybe only fallen from the second rung of the ladder. And so typically you can see at certain times of the year, certain types of accidents are happening. This year in 2018, we're running 3 specific campaigns. We had a vehicle and machinery campaign. We also had a livestock campaign. And then in the autumn time, you'll see us now, we will have a Working at Heights campaign.
And now, are you seeing a change on farms? Has there been any improvement as an inspector? Because I know the figures, there isn't that big of an improvement. So, what would you think about that?
There's no doubt about it. If you look at the statistics available there, even let's just take last year. When you look at all sectors, in 2017, agriculture, and it only, single farm payments, there's, let's say, approximately 130,000 in the country. For such a small sector, in one sense, they had last year 51% of all workplace deaths. By comparison, because sometimes people's perception of construction is very different. Last year, construction sector had 13% of all workplace deaths, agriculture at 51%. So certainly you can see over a period of time, the statistics are changing significantly in relation to agriculture, and the fatalities are increasing. So what have I noticed as an inspector going out onto farms? The age profile appears to be increasing on farms without a doubt. The typical areas where fatalities are happening, tractors and vehicles, it could be something simple. It could be the handbrake, inactive handbrake. It could be a PTO guard. It could be even the basic thing like the steps on the tractor. Livestock is another area where we've seen an increase in fatalities. Again, it's how do people manage livestock? Do they have an escape route planned whenever they're dealing with livestock? Very importantly on farms, the term traffic management is increasingly being advised. How does a farmer plan to manage machinery on the farm, livestock on the farm, and people on the farm?
Una Sinnott speaking to Martina Gormley there. Stay tuned, because coming up after this we have calls to cap the price of rented land and doubling feed capacity at Drina Co-op.
Areas of natural constraint payments. In this week's Irish Farmers Journal, most farmers look set to retain their ANC payments. Government agrees new limit for farmers entering nursing homes. We bring you an essential update on the early harvest. Taoiseach won't commit to low-cost farm loans in 2018. We speak to potato farmers about the challenges they're facing during the drought. Plus, we reveal how much rain is needed across the country to restore soil moisture levels and grass growth. Inside this week's Irish Farmers Journal, on sale now.
Well, the price of rented land is a contentious issue for most farm families at the moment, with many young farmers facing quotes for rented land of up to €300 an acre. Dairy farmer PJ O'Keefe won FBD Young Farmer of the Year 2017. He spoke to me at a Macra Firm event in Kilkenny about the need for a rent cap to be placed on land.
So PJ, we're here at the Macra Firma event, and you said some potentially controversial things about land capping, and land prices are very high at the moment in the rental market. So can you give us just a rundown for the listeners of what your ideas were on the subject?
I guess my point is that all enterprises within the farming industry at the moment need to be able to compete, and probably that price is closer to €200 an acre, that the tillage at the top end that the tillage farmer can compete with a dairy farmer at, and also for the beef farmer. So we need to, in essence, take a bit of heat out of the market and control it, because if we keep letting it go the way it is, we're going to end up with a Dutch model that's overly inflated, and also a New Zealand model that prices are just overly inflated. So my view on it is, if we could index land prices to soil fertility, which probably to me is going to be the greatest measure of the productivity of that land, because if we get soil fertility correct, it's the foundation stone to actually growing grass. So my point is that we don't, across the board, need massive yields of putting thoroughbreds like your Abergaines, Aberchoice, whatever it is in fields. We don't need to grow that 17-18 tonnes of dry matter or grass, because not every field can do it. But every field can be at optimum soil fertility at some level. It will take a period of time to do it, so I would rather see that supported. So if we can cap our land prices, so if we have index 1s and 2s, okay, and to actually develop some kind of a mechanism which can calculate this out. So if our soil fertility is from a PK perspective is reasonable, but our lime, there's a deduction on that until such a point that that's brought up. So we can then review our rents every 2 years, similar to where the housing structure is at the moment. It's a bit crazy, and the Competition Authority will raise their eyes at it, but the government have been able to do this in other factors, in other sections.
I mean, the fundamental drive behind land prices, people would argue, is dairy farmers, and you're a dairy farmer yourself, and we have heard prices go for €300 an acre. I mean, it's squeezing the tillage guys out and the beef guys out, and the tillage guys in particular would say that they need the land. So, I mean, what would you say about your own dairy industry then?
In essence, we're all as deserving of the land, and we have competitive advantages. And probably at the moment is between our tillage and our ability to grow grass, like side by side, that we're pretty proficient at it. We're not, I suppose, from a tillage perspective, we're not as good as the Americans at it. We don't have that scale, but we do have a level of expertise that's able to grow very, very good and very good crops right across the board. Similarly, from a grass point of view, we have excellent grassland farmers, and we have come to the fore in that. So over the last number of years, we've become more and more efficient. Yes, there might be a little bit of a tail, but no matter in what industry we compare, we're going to have a little bit of a tail. So I don't think the point should be to focus on that we have farmers maybe growing 3-4 tonne of grass. It's to focus on, if we achieve best practice, which is optimum soil fertility from a grass point of view, we then have a sustainable model. We have got the best from a fertility point of view out of our land. We just need to limit the level of production. We needn't chase our massive high-end yields. If we can get a good average right across the country, it's sustainable. We don't need everyone to run at 100 miles an hour. If we can get everyone to run at a safe pace and sustainable pace, then we're going to tie in from an environmental point of view, from a labour point of view, that we're not asking too much of people, and look from a financial point of view as well. So where we can actually meet bank requirements, so we don't have any horror stories. We just have to be very, very careful that we don't overstock our farms, that we run into trouble with banks. And I think if we actually put some kind of freeze within the market, and to me the rent cap is the best way of doing that.
PJ O'Keefe there. Now, many farmers are still battling drought conditions on farms, and with feed demand increasing by almost 70% in some parts of the country, it's perhaps timely that Drina Co-op in West Cork has opened a new €3.75 million feed mill that will see their feed mill capacity double. An Taoiseach officially opened the new mill last Friday, and I spoke to Drina Co-op CEO Joe Sullivan about the new mill and what it would mean for farmers in the area.
So a great day, I suppose, for Drina. It's a historic day where you have the acting Taoiseach coming. But I suppose for farmers on the ground, this new feed mill, what does it mean for Drina and the local area? What's it going to provide?
Well, we saw a number of years ago that with the expansion, or with the proposed expansion in milk production, that our feed mill would have to be upgraded to meet demand, and then in a timely way it also met a very difficult spring and now a drought situation. So we're delighted that we took the decision at the time to make the investment, and this investment will stand us to good stead for many years to come.
And do we have any kind of numbers or stats around, how much more production this is going to bring?
This is actually doubled our production from about 60,000 tonnes to 120,000 tonnes of feed.
And is that to provide for future expansion in the area, or to keep up with the expansion that's happened?
Well, it's to provide for future expansion as well. I think that in the years ahead there will be greater emphasis, hopefully, on the feeding of concentrates, as maybe the farms get maxed out with cows and so on.
I suppose we've had a prolonged spring period, and now we have the drought period as well, and there's a lot of people asking questions about dairy expansion and maybe about Foodwise 2025. I mean, we're very proud of this green image, but what way do you see farms going locally in this area? Is it going to become? Are we going to keep having cattle outside, or are we going to turn to more maybe sort of housed cattle? What do you think?
Yeah, it's a very good point. I would have said a couple of years ago that the expansion would have gone on maybe at a higher rate, but when I see now the difficulties this spring and this summer, guys are taking stock and saying maybe, but then again, farmers have a short memory. If this present drought sorted itself out, and if they got a good fall and a good milk price, then I think they'd look at next year in a different way. But I think, they're going to take stock in terms of potential into the future.
We've been hearing a little bit of a discussion, I suppose, and we have to ask it when you have a new feed mill going around GM feed. We know in America they're bringing in new labels. We hear constantly about this German market that's looking for a GM-free feed. I mean, is that something that's come up in Drina? Has there been chats about it?
That's been looked at in the whole West Cork scenario in terms of GM feed, and there's a working group looking at that at the moment, and we'll see what comes out of it.
I suppose conditions on the ground for farmers, everyone's looking at the milk price at the minute. What do we expect? Are we hoping to stay over the 30 cent? I know you guys are in the top end of things in the country at the minute, so there'd be high hopes pinned on you.
There are some signs now that the market is firming up. I think our price at the moment is over the market equivalent price, but hopefully if the market comes up a bit, that we can sustain this price for the fall, and if that happens, who knows, maybe next year, maybe next spring might be at the same level. So it's somewhat positive, I think, in terms of the whole supply-demand situation in the world. The positives are slightly stronger than the negatives.
We heard the Taoiseach talk a lot about Brexit today, and it's looking increasingly likely that there might be a hard border scenario as a co-op that provides milk that goes towards cheese, that a lot of it's shipped to the UK. I mean, are there fears around that? What's your contingency plan here?
Yeah, it's a huge source of concern for us, because in West Cork especially, through Carberry, food ingredients, we are very dependent on cheddar cheese going to the UK market. But the whole Brexit thing is so mixed up right now that you're better off not even thinking about it, I think. We have to plan for the worst. We have to look at product mix and maybe less dependence on cheddar cheese.
And are you looking at other markets? Like, there was a lot of talk when Board Bia went to Japan and South Korea last year about that becoming a future market. Do you think that will be realised?
Yes, I think Carberry, and I know they are looking at other markets besides the UK, and that would include the Far East and other places where there's increasing demand.
Last question just around SMP, and the Commission have said that there might be 2 sales a month in some months of SMP, and there's 280,000 tonnes now in intervention. Do you think that's a good idea?
It's anything that will get rid of some of that stock. That stock is overhanging the market, causing negative effects. It would be great to see two quotations per month, and hopefully get the stock down. And we look forward into next year with a bit of optimism again.
Thank you very much.
Joe Sullivan there. The IFA was out in force this week protesting against a proposed greenway in South Kerry, with the Kerry County Council expecting to lodge planning permission by the end of this month, and up to 197 compulsory purchase orders for land expected to be included in their application. Our correspondent Barry Cassidy travelled down to Tralee, where the protest was being held outside County Council offices, where he spoke to a number of farmers at the event.
I'm here with Pat O'Driscoll, IFA Kerry Chair. We're here today at a protest outside council offices. The council's been proposing to put a greenway through South Kerry. Pat's been here on the ground. He's going to tell us a bit more.
Well, I've been involved in this project from the start. I was actually working on the board of the South Kerry Development Partnership, who commissioned the feasibility study into the greenway originally and brought it to the council to try and create something for South Kerry that would keep tourism locally down there. And we thought this was a great initiative. We had consultation meetings after that with the local landowners, and I could safely say up to 90% of the people along the greenway saw the benefit of it and were in favour of working with the council in order to get it built on their land. And they wanted to engage with the council. The council have since then come along and said they want to CPO the land off the people, and they've lost the goodwill of the people of South Kerry. And the thing about it is, it's been watched nationally as well, because this is to set if a CPO is successful in South Kerry to acquire land for a greenway or an amenity, it sets a precedent nationally. And as you can see here today with all the banners we have from all counties, they're here from Donegal, Monaghan, down the southwest or the southeast of Ireland, Cork, everywhere. It's an important issue, and farmers are concerned nationally with this issue. We all see the farmers themselves see the benefit of it, what it can bring to the county. We see what's happening in the Dungarvan to Waterford Greenway, the success that has been. But that has been done by consultation with farmers, and accommodation work's being carried out in their farms where their livelihoods are not affected by the greenway going right through the middle of their land. And that's all we want in South Kerry as well. It's equality.
And you've mentioned as well, obviously, the strong turnout here today from not just Kerry IFA, but from IFAs all around. Obviously, this is something that the IFA is not going to let slip away and go unnoticed.
No, we're not. Look, we had an important role in coming up with the consultation document, the strategies for greenways that was launched nationally last Friday in Moat. And we're quite happy with what's in that. And we want Kerry County Council to abide by that code of practice.
Here with Morgan Lynn, one of the farmers affected by the South Kerry Greenway CPO threat. Morgan, can you tell us a little bit more about it?
Well, I suppose in 2015 we were here the day the CPO was voted on by the councillors. That was February 2015, and we spoke to as many councillors as we could. We didn't want it to go to CPO at that stage because we knew that it was the wrong decision. But only 9 councillors voted against the CPO on that occasion, and the rest voted for it. Now, since then, there has been little or no consultation with the farmers. As I say, the chief executive told us that the reason they were going for CPO that year, that was the last resort they were going for CPO, that the greenway had to be built and completed by December 2016, or all the funding would have been lost. Now we're in the end of July 2018, and we're no nearer now to a greenway than we were actually in February 2015. And my fear is that if this is pushed into the courts, it's going to turn in from the greenway issue to a land acquisition rights issue, and I can see that the greenway for South Kerry will be lost, and there will never be a greenway built in South Kerry if the council keep pushing ahead with their CPO. They need to come back to us.
Because I've seen the posters today and I've talked to many people today, and they've all said it's yes to greenways but it's no to CPOs. That's a feeling that's reflected on the ground.
Without a doubt, yeah. I personally would like to see the CPO being built, but I cannot see it being built with the current the way the council are currently pushing the CPO.
And I suppose yourself personally, Morgan, what exactly was the council proposing to do with the route on your farm?
Well, it's actually affecting me in 3 different places, but in 2 places it's outside a boundary, so it doesn't really affect me that much. But there is one location where I have problems with the council, in that when my father transferred the farm, he left 4 of the family. He left us 4 sites, and the greenway is cutting, the proposed greenway is cutting straight through the 4 sites. Now, I am willing to look at alternative sites, but the council are not.
I'm here with Thomas Cooney, IFA Environmental Chairman. Thomas, why are we here today?
We're here today, well, basically, number one, we're for greenways, but we want them done by consultation, by negotiation and dialogue. We want Kerry County Council to adopt the principles that set out in the strategy document that was published by Minister Ross at the weekend, and to rethink and go back to the drawing board and do everything by consultation, dialogue and negotiation. And we feel that that's the only way that greenways will be delivered, if they adopt the guidelines set out in the strategy document.
Because you've said there yourself, you're pro-greenways, but against CPOs. So that's obviously where the crux of the issue is.
Exactly, yes. And look at a little bit of... We don't want to go through the best silage field that a farmer has. Farmers have offered alternative routes. We have met no farmer opposed to the greenway. They're all offering alternatives, and even on their own land they're offering alternatives. Some may need things such as an underpass, whereas it may be causing a serious inconvenience. An underpass may solve some, a slight move off course could solve another problem. Things that's what we're calling for the agronomist to be put in place. Again, it's in the strategy document. If the agronomist is put on the ground to assess the impact that it's having on the farm and to come up with a solution, an alternative solution.
I suppose the big thing I've heard today so far is the precedent set were a CPO to be used to build a greenway. Is that a dangerous thought, do you think?
We think it would be a dangerous precedent to set, because in the past with other projects it hasn't worked well. Take Shell to Sea, for example. The concerns of the landowners weren't listened to, and we feel that it would be the greenway would be built quicker if the guidelines of the strategy document were adopted.
Thomas, thanks very much. I'm here with Christy MacDonald, one of the farmers affected by the South Kerry Greenway route. Christy, can you tell me a bit what's happening today?
What's actually happening today is there's a big meeting of the IFA, ICMSA, of the different groups around the country. There's a big crowd here today from all over the country to support us, because we're Greenway as CPO now.
The CPO is obviously something that's real to your farm. It's affecting you.
It is affecting me big time, because it will really affect my farming if it goes through. I want to put a greenway right through my driveway, and it will really affect my day-to-day farm.
And I suppose what we've heard from everyone today is that the farmers aren't against the greenway. It's the threat that the council is placing on farmers.
The threat is around the CPO, because if they go with our CPO, it's like a virus. It will go all over the country.
Christy, thanks very much.
That was Barry Cassidy finishing that report there. That's it for this week. Remember to buy the paper tomorrow and support my pension fund. You can get in touch and follow the news on our Facebook and Twitter pages, and thanks for listening. The sound engineer this week was Ferdia Mooney, and I'm Hannah Quinn Mulligan.
The Irish Farmers Journal podcast, online at farmersjournal.ie and on iTunes every Thursday.